CNN reports the 14-year-old Appalachia High School student charged in connection with a shooting that left 2 students and 2 teachers dead did not enter a plea during his first appearance in court on Friday. Colt Gray was arraigned in a Barrow County courtroom on 4 counts of felony murder stemming from a school shooting that's left a small North Georgia community grieving. Officers escorted the teenager into the courtroom shackled, his long hair obscuring parts of his face throughout the proceeding. Judge Curry Mingledorf informed Gray of his rights and said the maximum penalty for the charges in his case is life in prison. Gray's father, Colin Gray, 54, is expected to appear in the same courtroom later Friday morning to be arraigned on 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter, 2 counts of second-degree murder, and 8 counts of cruelty to children. So the father in the Appalachia High School shooting has been charged also with manslaughter and murder. And I'll wait for more facts to come out to explain why exactly the father was charged in this case. It's perfectly possible that he deserves to be charged. We just have to wait for the facts to come out. Now, we did see in the case of Ethan Crumbley, who killed 4 students at Oxford High School a few years ago, that his parents were charged and then convicted and sentenced to years in prison as well. And I said at the time that, and I think I was in the minority, and I'm probably still in the minority on this, but I'm perfectly willing to believe, in fact, I think it's very likely that Ethan Crumbley's parents were really bad parents. And if you were to tell me they were bad people, I think there's a lot of evidence for that. But I was worried at the time about a precedent being set where parents are automatically charged with a crime when their kids commit one. And I think that's a very, very dangerous precedent. It may be sort of emotionally satisfying to throw the parents in jail when the kid does something heinous, but the precedent here is troubling because the parents didn't actually commit the crime. And charging someone else for a crime that another human being commits, unless there was actual conspiracy going on and they were involved in some way, but if they weren't, charging them anyway it can go to places we don't want to go as a society. They might be bad parents, but they didn't commit the crime. And if we're going down this road, where does it end? And as I said at the time, there are a whole bunch of violent criminals in the inner city with neglectful, awful parents, right? There's violence and murder happening all the time there. You take any thug who knocks over a liquor store, shoots the clerk in any city in America, right? You could look at his parents and you could easily make the case that if his parents had tried at all to actually raise him and engage in some form of like moral formation, that he never would have committed that crime. So you can make the same exact argument. And so why are we putting all those parents in jail? So that's part of the problem here. It seems very arbitrary. Now, we'll see if this case in Georgia is following that precedent, or maybe the facts here are unique, and even without that precedent, you'd still have to charge the father. So we'll see. It's an interesting pattern that we're seeing emerge here. And there's one other point about this shooting that I wanted to talk about. According to the reporting on this shooter was confronted initially and stopped by 2 school resource officers. And that's a very important point here. And it's important because there's a movement on the left, and there has been for years now, to get school resource officers out of the schools. One of those people on the left is Kamala Harris. And here she is again. Once again, we're going back to 2019. 2019 is the last time that Kamala Harris was at all honest about her actual political agenda. And so that's why we're constantly going back to 2019. Here she is at 2019 talking about her ideas for school safety. Listen.
And then also, again, what we need to do about demilitarizing our schools. and taking police officers out of schools. We need to deal with the reality and speak the truth about the inequities around school discipline.
So she wants to get the school resource officers out of the schools. That's what she said in 2019. And if she had gotten her way in the case of the of Appalachia High School, it's very likely that many more children and staff would be dead if she had gotten her way. That's because it's totally insane. I mean, it's completely insane to advocate for taking these officers out of the school. What? She says demilitarize the schools. Well, these are police officers. They're not military. There's a difference. That's the first thing. So anytime you see a cop somewhere, it's militarized, right? You get pulled over for speeding on the highway. We've militarized the highways now? No, you idiot. Militarized means the military is there. And yes, I would totally agree. We should not have the military. I don't want the National Guard stationed in every school in America. I would agree that's going a bit too far. I would not be in favor of that, but that's not what's happening. All police officers are supposed to be tasked with keeping their community safe. Makes a lot of sense to me that that wouldn't just include keeping children in school safe, but that would be like the first priority is keeping children safe. So the argument against having school resource officers has never made any sense. Unless your goal is actually to get more kids killed. If you want kids to die, then yes, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, that would be the way to do it, is take the school resource officers out. But if you are not a psychopathic, murderous, bloodthirsty scumbag, and you actually want to save children's lives, then obviously you have police officers in the school, and you have. And if you can't have enough police officers in the school, then you have armed security guards. That's like the second best option. And yes, if you have to arm the teachers, you do that too. Whatever needs to be done. Because for the same reason that we have armed officers, we have armed security in banks. Okay, we put them there to protect our money in banks. Nobody ever objects to that. When you walk into a bank and you see an armed security guard, nobody says, we've militarized the banks. Now I'm afraid to go to the bank. No, you walk in and you say, well, of course there's armed security here. There's money here. People might want to rob a bank. Now, banks, it's pretty rare that banks get robbed. It's actually very rare. You don't hear about banks getting robbed all that often anymore, but it can happen. And just even the small likelihood of that happening, we all say, yeah, of course you have armed security. This is where we know that there's a history of people wanting to rob banks, and we value our money, and so we say let's have armed security there. When you go to any government building, they have armed security. Nobody has a problem with that. No one objects. Nobody's confused about it. We don't debate it. We say, yeah, I mean, it's very unlikely that anybody will go into a government building and try to kill people. But we understand that it could happen. And these are where government workers and politicians are. And I guess we value them to some extent. And so we say, yeah, there should be armed security. So in all of these contexts, we have no issue with it because we value money, we value politicians, government workers. Okay, you go to the Social Security office and there's going to be an armed security guard there. Protecting what? Paperwork? So we value our paperwork. And then we've got these buildings where we keep our children. 50 million children go into these buildings every single day. and there's a debate about whether or not we want to protect them. It's insane. It's totally crazy that there's any discussion about it whatsoever. And the argument against it is always, well, but there shouldn't be school shootings. It just shouldn't happen. Yeah, it shouldn't happen. There also shouldn't be people robbing banks, but they do sometimes. And there will always be people doing that sometimes. So shouldn't happen, what the hell does that mean? What do you do with it? It shouldn't happen, yet it does. This is the point J.D. Vance was making. He says it's a fact of life. And then you have these morons that are, well, how could you say it's a fact of life? I don't know, because it is, you idiots. I wish it wasn't, but it is. Cancer is a fact of life. If I say cancer is a fact of life, is that me supporting cancer? Am I being an apologist for cancer because I point out that people get it and it's bad and we should try to prevent it? These people are they're either total abject, just brain dead morons, or they want kids to die. Those are the only two reasons why anyone could object to having police officers in the schools, armed security in the schools. There is no smart, honest reason outside of that. There just isn't. If you'd like to see what else I have to say, you can access my full show by going to dailywire.com or by going to the Matt Walsh Show Twitter page. Hope to see you there. Godspeed.